from the perspective of our sister people of Angola. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here, be invited. Thank you. In the name of our ambassador, he could not be here, and we all celebrate this day as Africa Day, and there's a very high privilege to be here. We don't have yearly and something that was previously that's supposed to be here and say something, but as a diplomat, we for this day in Africa, we salute the speech of the leader of FF. We saw enough insights and main thing that we took a note and we understood. For us, Angola, this day also is something very special because we are part of the African continent, and our president in this day also sent a message for the continent. We can say, also replicate that and send the message for all African people for this day that should be united, respect each other, and we should be sure what we are aiming to be in our continent. For today, I can just say, Happy Africa Day, and thank you, everyone.
Your Excellency Antonio Luiz, when he came in, Comrade President, we greeted and we reminded him that we've got over 100 graves in the south of Angola. The unfortunate part with those graves of the MK gallant fighters is that all of them are booby-trapped. They've got landmines and it's a struggle to exhume those bodies, and there's some experts needed, but we are told that there's some progress in that regard. Thank you very much, Comrade, Your Excellency from Angola. Our next speaker shall be from Democratic Republic of Congo, His Excellency Laurent Liongo. A remark to the speech by our President. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are very honored as the DRC to participate to this summit, and as we appreciate the outstanding speech by the Chief Commander of EFF that we really appreciate and love from the DRC. And then in the absence of the DRC ambassador, as is a senior advisor, alongside with my colleagues and many others from different countries, we would like to say that as we commemorate the African Day, we should always remember that it is not only the celebration of independent flags or political history, but it's a celebration of a common destiny, struggles, and future. And then the dream of a united Africa will never be achieved with hatred against each other, with Afrophobia, and without a full, committed African integration efforts. Therefore, we can say as well that the dream of an African freedom, African unity and economic freedom cannot be achieved without the DRC, for the rare and strategic minerals of the DRC are to serve for the purpose of the African economic freedom. Hence, we need to stand as one land, as one people, for all these flags that we are lifting up are only representing different nations, but on the same soil and land called Africa, and then which we need to advocate. We need to be one and fight against any plague which divides us, which is playing in the favor of the enemies of Africa. Once more, we thank you, and then we really appreciate this effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, from the Democratic Republic of Congo. The soil of the Democratic Republic of Congo, the blood of our soldiers, gallant fighters of the South African National Defence Forces found there. That's what connects us, the lake and waters and the minerals, our people and the sister republic. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Alphabetically, the next is His Excellency from the Equatorial Guinea, where Mama Miriam Makeba spent over 15 years when the government of the United States did not want her anymore. Your Excellency, this podium is yours. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to thank, first of all, the EFF for inviting our embassy to attend this event. And I would also like to thank the president of the EFF for the speech he gave. It reassured us Africans that we have the support of the leadership of this country with regards to the opposition against what is currently happening in the country. It's rather sad that in this, let's say this African Day, the most relevant topic or the most famous topic will be the African xenophobia issue, instead of probably talking about alliances, signing contracts, which is more of a topic that will probably help Africa the most. But unfortunately, that's what needs to happen. Once again, I would like to thank the president of the EFF for this speech again, because it's really worthy of the YouTube channel. Most of us know him from the speeches on YouTube, and I'd like to tell him that this one is worthy of another YouTube channel, episode. Well, this is a bit unprepared, so unfortunately I'll have to keep it short and say thank you for everyone for inviting us. Thank you.
Your Excellency Romeo Ngume, we thank you very much on behalf of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Alphabetically next to follow our neighbors were the graves of our great heroes and gallant fighters of Umkhonto we Sizwe. That is Equatorial Guinea. Thank you very much, President. Equatorial Guinea, the home of Mama Miriam Makeba. In Mozambique, when we see our brothers and sisters from Mozambique, we remember the Matola raid and many other assassinations by the white South African government against the leadership of the leaders of the liberation struggle. Your Excellency, you are welcome.
Good morning. I really was not prepared to say any words, but first I need to listen for this event, which is in this Africa Day, in the Africa celebration, is a very important occasion for us to rethink about where we are and where we go. And it's important to recall that Mozambique and South Africa had a very long history together. From centuries ago, even during the colonial time, and all the efforts we had to have Southern Africa free. Mozambique and South Africa are born to be together. First, because we are geographically linked, we have also a lot of economic ties. So I think that during this celebration, it's time for us to think how we can be tied more, and also also to think about that these the links we have, cultural, economic, between the two countries, is part of our integration in SADC. And it's with these little and small things we can do together, it takes us to the bigger picture, which is what we want to be tomorrow. So I thank you for this opportunity for us to rethink about our way forward in our continent, in our region in particular. Thank you.
Your Excellency, we will meet at the 19th October at Mbuzini, the place where three borders meet. Nkosi Mlambo, there in that village, has got a problem because on the other side of the fence in Mozambique, there are Swati and Tsonga speaking Africans who actually owe allegiance to his kingdom on the other side of South Africa. And has got a problem when he must address them during the African rituals and African cultural events of his chieftains. But that's for another day, Your Excellencies. Alphabetically, the People's Republic of Sahrawi, Your Excellency Pa El Maj Abdallah, you're welcome. The stage is yours.
Your Excellencies, comrades, I'll be brief in expressing my gratitude for convening this meeting or this summit. In fact, words fail me to express my gratitude to be a part of this gathering. And I would like to express the appreciation of the people of Western Sahara for the unwavering support and the bold position in favor of them to get the right to self-determination and to determine their future by themselves. And when it comes to Africa and African unity, I don't think that after this rich and comprehensive lecture that we just received from His Excellency the President, I will feel short, and I'm afraid of that, if I go in detailing exactly what Africa needs, or the past, even the past of Africa, the present, and we hear even the future of Africa. So Africa is ours. Long live Africa unity. Long live Africa unity. Thank you so much.
Your Excellencies, previous speaker from the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, it's always a pleasure to be with you amongst the only remaining African country which is still under the yoke of colonialism. We had invited the Kingdom of Morocco to this meeting because President wanted to tell them in their face that we can do better, because they must be told in their face. They mustn't hear about what we say about them. Alphabetically, we've got His Excellency from the People's Republic of Venezuela. You are welcome. The stage is yours. His Excellency Omar Gonzalez.
Thank you. Let me read my short speech. Okay, thank you, comrade, for this opportunity. Thank you, comrade Julius Malema and the party EFF for your support to Venezuelan people and our revolution, Bolivarian revolution. In congratulating Africa on this celebration of Africa Day, I would like to recall our commander Hugo Chavez when he said that we Venezuelans have three roots: an indigenous one from our original people, an European one through Spanish colonization, and of course a very important one, the African root resulting from the transatlantic slave trade. In that sense, I offer this greeting as a Venezuelan of African descent. More than 48% of our population considers themselves to be of African descent, and I do too. Comrade, our liberator Simón Bolívar, in his famous speech at Angostura between 1819, in the midst of the war for our independence, called on us to unite, not merely to integrate, unite. He said, unite, unite, unite must be our motto. We are confident that African unity will enable you to overcome of difficulties. Long live Africa. Happy Africa Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Our president has got an umbilical cord connection with the people of Venezuela. In 2010, he visited Venezuela and was chaired and had some very humorous lunch and dinner with the leadership of the People's Republic of Venezuela, the Bolivian Republic. We thank you very much. We are inspired by the resilience of the people of Venezuela, despite the aggressive imperialism being unleashed on them. Commissar Secretary General Machel Dlamini, we have come to now the item wherein our President may wish to reply to the messages of support from their excellencies who have been with us here, and then you give us a vote of thanks, Commissar Machel, thereafter. Comrade President.
Thank you very much, DP, and thank you very much, different embassies that came to give us the support. We really appreciate the responses you have given, and we're all speaking the same language, and we are together forever. The people of Venezuela, we are with you, and we've always been with you, and we are confident everything else will return to normal and will continue the struggle of the people of Venezuela. With those few remarks, I'll now call the SG to do vote of thanks. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, President, for leading us on this important day. And it's true, it's the words of Nkrumah have never been important as they are now. That is, Africans, it's either we unite or we perish. It's either we unite or we perish. If we're going to choose to be cowards or we're going to choose political opportunism, we will perish. So we have to stand for the truth. We want to thank all the excellencies, the ambassadors, for taking your time to come and be with the economic freedom fighters today, to remind each other of the journey still ahead of us, that we'll have to go forward together. President, we are reminded of what is currently happening even in the globe there. When America, led by Trump, with its imperial aggression towards Iran, with their sole intention of taking over their oil reserves, we saw the whole world, from Europe, Asia, America, all of them, they started closing ranks to make sure that they protect their oil reserves. And none of those countries, they spoke about, we must keep oil reserves and we must keep something for Africa, which then remind us of the words of Nkrumah again when he said, we neither look east or west, we have to look forward and uniting the African continent. It is important now. We want to thank you and pass our messages to the ambassadors that could not come through to this meeting, and we appreciate even other embassies that send the message of support that could not be with us here today, but they send their messages of support of this summit that was organized by the EFF. We are going to thank also the leaders of the organization, from our MECs, MMCs, the leaders of councils. We are on the ground, we are facing with the struggle, but you must remain firm. Today you got the commitment of the African leaders that we will win this battle. So we have to remain firm on the ground and stand on the side of the truth. We will, after this, thank the members of the media who came with us to cover this event. We know that some of those that want to destroy the continent, they control the media. So some of them, they were told not to come here, but others are here. So we want to thank you to coming to cover this event so that at all times you remain impartial and communicate what the people are communicating. We thank everyone, the staff, people from this venue that are hosted us. DP, you're going to lead us on a photo session with the excellencies. And from there, I think the Deputy President also arranged lunch for us, which the ushers will take us where we can sit and have lunch with the leadership. Leadership, you are not released. We must still sit through lunch and exchange notes with the excellencies. The day still belongs to us. Thank you very much, Deputy President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will direct our photo session. We request Obaking and other strong fighters to help us take the sofas and the podium out in this. And then President will have the first photo session with all the excellencies, and thereafter with the MMCs and the officials.
To resist full colonial occupation and had become a symbol of African independence globally. Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt championed anti-imperialism and Arab-African solidarity while positioning Egypt as a central force in continental politics. Julius Nyerere of Tanzania advanced African socialism and supported liberation movements across Southern Africa, turning Tanzania into a base for anti-colonial struggles. Ahmed Ben Bella of Algeria emerged directly from armed resistance against French colonialism and strongly supported revolutionary movements across the continent. Leaders such as Sekou Toure of Guinea, Modibo Keita of Mali, and later Samora Machel, Agostinho Neto, Thomas Sankara, and Muammar Gaddafi all carried forward different dimensions of Pan-African vision. The OAU played a decisive role in supporting liberation movements militarily, diplomatically, and politically. It helped isolate apartheid South Africa internationally, supported independence struggles in Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Guinea-Bissau, and elsewhere, and created a platform through which Africa could speak collectively against colonialism and racism. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, African leaders recognized that the post-colonial challenges facing the continent require a strong continental institution. Globalization, economic dependency, debt crisis, conflict, and underdevelopment demanded a more integrated African response. This led to the transformation of the OAU into African Union in 2002. The African Union was envisioned as a more active institution capable not only of political solidarity, but also economic integration, peacekeeping, infrastructure coordination, continental development, stronger African representation in global affairs. The AU emerged from the recognition that Africa could no longer survive merely as a collective of weak, fragmented states operating individually in a global system dominated by powerful economic blocs, and that historic mission remains unfinished. However, comrades and compatriots, the truthful history of African liberation can never be told without recognizing the women of Africa. Too often, history remembers men with guns and podiums while forgetting the women who carried revolutions on their backs, hid freedom fighters in their homes, crossed border carrying intelligence, organized underground movements, mobilized communities, educated generations, and in many cases took up arms themselves against colonialism and apartheid. The freedom of Africa was not won by men alone. It was won by women such as Queen Nzinga of Angola, who resisted Portuguese colonial expansion in the 17th century with extraordinary military and diplomatic skills. It was won by different kinds of women in different kinds of the continent and countries. It was won by Josina Michel of Mozambique, who became a symbol of women participation in the armed struggle through Frelimo. It was won by Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Albertina Sisulu, Lillian Ngoyi, Charlotte Maxeke, and countless women of South Africa who endured burnings, imprisonment, torture, exile, and harassment while sustaining the anti-apartheid struggle. It was won by women combatants in Algeria who carried bombs through colonial checkpoints and stood at the center of the Algerian Revolution. It was won by the women of Guinea-Bissau, Angola, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Kenya, and Tanzania who transformed liberation movements from isolated military campaigns into mass popular struggles. We have to ask ourselves, have we fulfilled the dream of those who gathered in Addis Ababa in 1963? Or we just continuing with business as usual because we do not care about the historical mission of those who came before us? The answer is both yes and no. Yes, because Africa has defeated formal colonialism and apartheid. Yes, because African people continue to rise with resilience, creativity, and determination. Yes, because despite every obstacle placed before us, Africa continues to produce victories that deserve celebration. We commend Ethiopia for the Grand Ethiopian Resistance Dam, a symbol of African ambition, African engineering, and African self-determination. We recognize the advances made in Rwanda in healthcare, technology, and public administration. We commend Botswana for exercising relative stability and greater control over its mineral wealth. We celebrate Kenya's leadership in financial technology and geothermal energy innovation. We salute Nigeria for building one of the world's largest creative industries through Nollywood and for shaping global music and culture through Afrobeats. We celebrate South Africa's scientists and researchers who demonstrated African excellence during COVID-19 pandemic. We recognize the growing assertion of sovereignty by countries such as Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, whose people increasingly demand that African resources must benefit African people rather than foreign powers. We celebrate the African Continental Free Trade Area as an important step towards economic integration and intra-African trade. Perhaps most importantly, we celebrate the rebirth of Pan-African consciousness amongst African youth, young Africans who are rejecting inferiority, reconnecting with African identity, and demanding dignity, opportunity, and self-determination. As we celebrate Africa Day, we cannot do so honestly without confronting the painful realities facing parts of our continent today. Because while Africa possesses extraordinary potential, millions of Africans continue to live under conditions of war, displacement, occupation, instability, and humanitarian crisis. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the most richest countries on earth in terms of natural resources, generations of people continue to suffer violence, displacements, and exploitation. Eastern Congo remains trapped in cycles of armed conflict involving militias, foreign interferences, illegal mineral extraction, and regional instability. Countless lives have been lost in what has often been described as one of the most deadliest conflicts since the Second World War. In Sudan, we are witnessing another devastating humanitarian catastrophe. The conflict between foreign-sponsored rival military forces has displaced millions of people internally and across borders, destroyed infrastructure, disrupted healthcare system, and deepened hunger and insecurity. Sudan is a painful reminder of what happens when militarization, political instability, foreign interest, and weak democratic institutions converge. Ordinary Sudanese people, workers, women, children, students, families continue to pay their highest price for struggles over political power. In Somalia, decades of instability, conflict, terrorism, foreign intervention, and humanitarian crisis continue to affect millions of lives. Yet, Somalia also represents something important: the resilience of African people even under extreme conditions. Despite decades of war and fragmentation, Somalia community continues to build businesses, sustain families, maintain social networks, and reconstruct institutions. The Somali people deserve more than permanent humanitarian management by external actors. They deserve long-term peace, development, sovereignty, and investment in reconstruction. Africa must move beyond seeing Somalia only through the lens of conflict and instead support genuine state building, economic development, and regional stability led by Africans themselves. We must also speak clearly about Western Sahara, as it remains one of the last unresolved decolonization struggles on the African continent. For decades, the Sahrawi people have continued their struggle for self-determination in the face of occupation and displacement by Morocco. Africa cannot claim to stand fully for liberation while the question of Western Sahara remains unresolved. The right of people to determine their own future is a principle rooted deeply in the anti-colonial history of our continent. The crisis across Congo, Sudan, Somalia, Western Sahara, and elsewhere reminds us of important truth. Africa's peace and stability are interconnected. Instability in one African country quickly becomes instability for neighboring regions through displacement, economic disruption, trafficking, extremism, food insecurity, and humanitarian collapse. Africa cannot continue responding to continental crises through fragmentation and dependency on external powers whose interests are often geopolitical rather than humanitarian. We need stronger Africa peace-building institutions, stronger regional cooperation, Africa-led conflict resolution, investment in development, education, healthcare, economic opportunity, because poverty and hopelessness create fertile ground for instability. If we are to speak honestly about Africa, we must also speak about the material condition of our economy, both its weaknesses and its enormous untapped potential. Today, Africa's combined gross domestic product stands approximately at $3 trillion in nominal terms, making it about 2.5% of the global economy, despite Africa being home to roughly 18% of the world population. This imbalance alone tells the story of structural injustice in the global economic system. However, it also tells another story, that Africa remains massively underdeveloped, not because of lack of resources, but because of lack of industrialization and value additions. Sub-Saharan Africa is projected to grow at around 3.5 to 4.3% annually, making it one of the fastest growing regions in the world. However, this growth is not just transforming the lived realities of the majority of African people, because it is driven largely by raw material exports rather than manufacturing and industrial capacity. One of the clearest contradictions is trade within the continent itself. Intra-African trade remains at roughly 15% to 18% of total African trade, meaning that more than 80% of African trade is still conducted outside the continent with Europe, Asia, and North America. This shows that Africa continues to trade more with the outside world than with itself. This is why initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area are agent. Without internal trade integration, Africa will remain a supplier of raw materials and consumer of finished goods produced elsewhere. On debt, the situation is equally serious. African governments are expected to face more than $90 billion in external debt repayment in 2026 alone, placing enormous pressure on national budgets already struggling with unemployment, infrastructure backlogs, and social instability. In many countries, debt servicing consumes more resources than investment in health or education, meaning the future is being financed at the expense of the present. Despite these challenges, there are important signs of transformation. Africa is a home to nearly $4 trillion in institutional assets, including pension funds and sovereign wealth funds. This is capital that is increasingly being discussed as a foundation of self-financing development rather than dependency on external aid. This shows that Africa is not poor, but financially fragmented. If properly mobilized, African capital alone could finance infrastructure, industrialization, and development across the continent. The contradiction is clear that Africa is growing, but not transforming fast enough. Africa is trading, but not with itself. Africa is wealthy in resources, but poor in ownership and industrial capacity. Africa is financially rich on paper, but structurally dependent in practice. The task before us is therefore to transform them into material change for African people, because true economic freedom will only be achieved when Africa produces what it consumes, trades with itself, controls its own value chain, and turns raw material into finished goods on African soil. This is the next stage of the African revolution. Comrades and compatriots, no conversation about the future of Africa can be completed without speaking about the youth of our continent, because Africa is the youngest continent on earth. African youth make up nearly 60% of continent's population, and by 2030, Africa is expected to account for 42% of all young people globally. Additionally, the median age of Africa is just above 18 years old. This means humanity's future is increasingly tied to the future of African youth. Yet, despite the enormous demographic advantage, millions of young Africans continue to confront unemployment, poor education system, migration crisis, inequality, and economic exclusion. Too many Africans, graduates, leave university only to enter economies that cannot absorb their skills. Too many young Africans cross deserts and oceans searching for opportunity because our economy has failed to create meaningful work and dignified lives. Despite this hardship, African youth continue to rise with extraordinary creativity and determination. Young Africans are transforming global culture through music, fashion, film, technology, sports, and entrepreneurship. Young Africans are also shaping political consciousness across the continent, from Feast Must Fall in South Africa to youth-led democratic mobilization in Senegal to the young fighters who stood to reject the finance bill in Kenya and end SARS in Nigeria. History teaches us that this is nothing new. Patrice Lumumba was only 35 years old when he became Prime Minister of Congo and confronted imperialism directly. Thomas Sankara transformed Burkina Faso before the age of 40, and the young people of Soweto in 1976 shook the apartheid regime and inspired the world through fearless resistance. The history of African liberation has always been written by courageous youth, and that is why the greatest betrayal of African youth today is not only unemployment, but the absence of vision from leadership. The young Africans do not want to be isolated and excluded. The young Africans want to be given an opportunity to participate because they've got the ideas. We must not be threatened by the young people, especially as the older generation. Above all, they want the right to build successful lives on African soil because Africa is what they know, and nothing else will ever make sense to the young Africans except Africa itself. We must do away with the leadership that is threatened by young people and always want to isolate them and destroy them young, because by doing so, you are destroying the future of Africa. In recent weeks, our continent has once again confronted the devastating reality of Ebola outbreaks in parts of DRC and Uganda. And these outbreaks, hundreds of suspected cases and deaths have been recorded, with the World Health Organization warning that in some instances the spread has outpaced response efforts and overwhelmed already fragile health systems. These outbreaks have been made more severe not only by the virus itself, but by deeper structural conditions, under-resourced healthcare system, conflict in Eastern Congo, displacement of communities, mistrust in public health intervention, and attacks on healthcare facilities attempting to save lives. What this teaches us is clear. Health crises in Africa are never just medical crises. They are political, economic, and social crises at the same time. Yet, even in the face of such tragedy, African health workers, scientists, and communities have shown extraordinary resilience. Uganda, for example, has repeatedly demonstrated the capacity to contain Ebola outbreaks through rapid coordination, surveillance, and community response system, often bringing outbreaks under control within months. We therefore salute the nurses, doctors, volunteers, and community leaders who place themselves on the front lines of this crisis, often without adequate resources to protect African life. No African country can fight pandemic alone. No border can stop a virus, and no nation can build health security in isolation with its neighbors if its neighbors are weak. That is why we must strengthen continental cooperation in public health, invest in African pharmaceutical capacity, support African research institutions, and ensure that never again does Africa depend entirely on external powers for emergency responses to crises that are ours. This was made even more evident to us when, during the COVID-19 virus, Western powers were ready to let us die while they hoarded vaccines and refused to deliver vaccines already paid for by African countries. The dignity of African people demands more from us, and as we speak about African unity and Pan-Africanism, we must confront one of the greatest dangers facing the continent today: Afrophobia. What some call xenophobia against fellow Africans is in truth Afrophobia, which is the hatred, suspicion, exclusion, and criminalization of African people by fellow Africans themselves. We must also be honest that Afrophobia is not new, and it did not begin in South Africa in 2008 or 2015. It is part of a long colonial strategy designed to divide African people, weaken solidarity, and make unity impossible. Colonialism survived by convincing Africans that they were strangers to one another. The Berlin Conference divided us artificially into Anglophone, Francophones, Lusophones, Arab Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, East Africa, Western Africa, and Southern Africa, not for our benefit, but to fragment African identity and prevent continental unity. From slavery to colonialism, to neocolonialism, to modern financial domination, the pattern has remained the same. Africa is valued for its mineral, labor, land, strategic position, and markets, but African lives themselves are treated as disposable. The world speaks about democracy and human rights, yet throughout history, it has repeatedly supported dictatorship, coups, destabilization campaigns, assassinations, and wars whenever African leaders attempted to exercise genuine sovereignty over African wealth. When Patrice Lumumba demanded control over Congolese resources, he was removed and assassinated. When Thomas Sankara sought to free Burkina Faso from dependency and debt, he was isolated and overthrown. When Muammar Gaddafi promoted African financial independence and continental integration, Libya was destroyed under the banner of humanitarian intervention, leaving instability across the Sahel that continues to this day. The destruction of Libya did not only destroy Libya, it destabilized Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan, and the border region through weapons, militant activities, trafficking networks, and migration crisis. This is how imperialism functions. One African country is weaponized against another, instability in one region becomes a crisis for neighboring states, and divisions weaken the continental collectively. White supremacy understood very early that a united Africa will become an unstoppable political and economic force, and so division became a weapon. We have seen painfully examples of this throughout modern African history. In 1969, the government of Ghana, under those orders, expelled hundreds of thousands of undocumented migrants, many of them Nigerians and Western Africans who had contributed to the Ghanaian economy. Years later, during economic crisis in the 1980s, Nigeria retaliated by expelling millions of Western African migrants, including large number of Ghanaians. This cycle of retaliation between the two great African nations demonstrated how quickly economic hardship can be manipulated into hostility against fellow Africans. Instead of confronting neo-colonial economic structure and elite failures, ordinary Africans became targets. In Zimbabwe, the Kukurahundi massacre of the 1980s remained one of the most painful chapters in the post-independence African history. Thousands of men in Ndebele civilians were killed during brutal state crackdown in Matabeleland. This tragedy reminds us that ethnic chauvinism and political intolerance can become deadly when power is not guided by democratic accountability and Pan-African humanism. Across Northern Africa, many blacks continue to face racism, exploitation, arbitrary detention, slave trafficking, and violence while migrating through Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, and other transit regions. The collapse of Libya after NATO intervention intensified the suffering of black African migrants, many of whom were falsely accused of being mercenaries, imprisoned, tortured, sold into slave markets, or abandoned in inhumane conditions. In recent years, inflammatory rhetoric against sub-Saharan Africans, parts of North Africa, has contributed to attacks, discrimination, and expulsion of vulnerable migrants whose only crime was searching for dignity and survival. And of course, we have witnessed a repeated waves of anti-African violence in South Africa itself, where migrants from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Somalia, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Malawi, Congo, and elsewhere have been attacked, displaced, looted, and killed. We must say clearly, this violence can never be justified. An unemployed South African and an unemployed Zimbabwean are both victims of the same global system of inequality and exploitation. A Nigerian street trader and a South African worker are not enemies. A Somali shopkeeper and a township resident are not enemies. The true enemy is the system that keeps African people poor while a tiny elite accumulates wealth. Kwame Nkrumah warned us when he said, "The forces that unite us are intrinsic and greater than the superimposed influences that keeps us apart." Julius Nyerere also reminds us, without unity, there is no future for Africa. Thomas Sankara taught us that imperialism often occurs in more subtle forms: a loan, food, aid, blackmail. Part of that subtle imperialism is teaching Africans to fear one another instead of confronting the structure that exploit all of us collectively. We must also never forget that African liberation itself depended on solidarity across borders. South African freedom fighters found refuge in Zambia, Tanzania, Angola, Mozambique, Algeria, Ethiopia, Libya, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria. Mozambique and Angola suffered destabilization and military attacks because they supported the anti-apartheid struggle. Nigeria funded liberation movements across Southern Africa. Tanzania became a home for exiled revolutionaries from across the continent, and Algeria trained liberation fighters from anti-colonial movements throughout
We
Africa.
are in power now.
No
those black
African
people.
country
So who do we still
liberated
blame?
itself
For bad
entirely
education in our
alone,
villages
and
and in
that
our
is why
primary,
Afrophobia
high schools and
is
etc.
not
To
only
still
morally
teach your children
wrong,
William
it is
Shakespeare
historically
in 2026.
ignorant. It is
I
a
know I'm very
betrayal.
unpopular for this, but I will say it.
We are here today to discuss a very special topic, and the topic that, whether you are in the diaspora, whether you are in Kenya, Namibia, Botswana, is something that we should be listening quite intensively.
And
When
it
they
was
just
a
use ID
celebration
card, yeah.
which did not appear on your newspapers.
Yes.
It was just no IDs, but the real underlying issue. Why I picked up that issue was specifically to speak to the indigenous organic people. So Botswana for me still holds that, and I hope the Minister of Arts and Culture could be able to hear what I'm saying. I hope the President can hear what I'm saying. But yes, let's move on with development. But there are some things that we don't need to develop, and things like indigeneity, and that we actually house one of these cultures and people amongst us. They deserve every amount of preservation that we would need. In the future, we will need this history. We will need this. Should the whole town burn and all these plants rust, the solution of our survival is in the knowledge of the herbs and the plants which those people still have. So, and it's unfortunately when knowledge goes away, it goes away with its people. And Botswana is very important to the ecology of the African knowledge system.
So how do you then contest the thinking that leaving the San, the Hadzabe tribe, and all these ancient tribes in their own lifestyle, like in Botswana, there are still those that are still hunter-gatherers, in Namibia as well. And there are those that think we are being unfair and being very cruel, leaving them to still hunt, to still live wearing, you know, they call it half naked in the Western books. How would you challenge those? Because indeed, those are still very much in existence in parts of Africa.
The arrogance of civilization thinks that everyone wants to look like it. And when you find people that are living their lives, you are judging them through your own eyes. You're not being honest. I call that maybe it's academic dishonesty, or it's cultural dishonesty. Because should the American come right here and force all of us to become Americans, we revolted against same-sex marriages on the basis that you are telling us to adopt a culture. We're not saying homosexuality is new amongst us, but don't force it and make it policy. There are bigger issues that we're dealing with here, issues of land, issues of health, issues of... And for you to zoom into a non-significant issue and make it priority, it's not important. Should the African also stand up where he is right now and force the American to become African? The Xhosa men walking up to Britain and say, be British, I'm going to circumcise all your children. Of course, the whole city will be up in arms. You will start a civil war.
These savages.
With nothing to do with your culture, that kind of thing. So, so I don't want us to become too presumptuous to a point of where we become arrogant in our academic conversation, that we think that we feel sorry for them. You don't feel sorry for anybody. They are feeling sorry for you. Here we are now suffering with all diseases that are Western driven. We no longer have children. We no longer have family. We are all just socializing on social media and etc. They sit in the evening, they dance around their fires, they can still read their stars, they follow the tracks of their animals, they are living. Who said that they need our sympathy? And again, that's a colonial parasite mindset, where a white person comes to an African and finds him, doing his own food, and says, no man, there's a better way of doing this. We've ended up in this rubbish of recycled GMO foods because they felt sorry for us. They felt sorry for us. And before we noticed it, every story led to another story. Now to undo the whole process of sorry, it's a whole civilization and cultural overtake. Our culture has been overtaken. But how interesting that every time Botswana want to celebrate their culture, guess what they want to look like? Then we rewind.
Yeah,
Then
we go back.
All of a
then
sudden,
we wear the stuff.
All of a sudden, so are we saying that our culture is only good for dancing?
Yeah.
That's all we want to remember ourselves. Then our people dance around. And after that, okay, forget about it. And I think that's a commercial way of looking at culture. If I was in Botswana here, I would actually block off those places, get the young people in town once in a while, put them on boot camps, allow them to induct so that they can appreciate. Those are doctorates, academic doctorates of data.
Of life, yes.
Of data, which universities in the world have not yet tapped into. Those writings, I mean, I spend lots of time in caves. And I get into those caves and I look at their drawings. I don't call them drawings, they're writings. The herbs that they were harvesting, the animals that they were eating, the ceremonies that they were the tools that they were carrying. And you look at it, it's a whole encyclopedia of a previous life, but harvested into an art form. Now, if we just take them as pictures and walk away and say, well, here are the Bushman paintings, I think we miss the science of the paint that they used for writing there. 5,000 years later, 10,000 years later, those paintings are still as they were written yesterday. For me, how about we find how they manufactured that paint? If we could paint our buildings using that quality of paint, how will our buildings look another 5,000 years from now? So it's not just paintings. For me, I look at the science of the paintings, the technologies, the materials that are used, and it's all there within our environments in terms of our habitat. Someone was actually telling me you mix that blackberry, the uvu, and with a bit of blood, and then some herbs that are on the ground to come up with that kind of a paint. Now,
that stands for hundreds of years, eh?
These are organic paints. These ones that we're using right now, they're full of methane and petrol and whatever, and they cause asthma and many other side effects. So we forfeit and we lose an opportunity to experience a deep culture that has preserved itself and its sciences, and we become like tourists in our own history.
Why are we blind to it, Ramaponga? I'll give you an example. I don't know if you've watched the National Geographic Pole to Pole.
I watch quite a bit.
Yeah, Pole to Pole. That's where Will Smith goes around the world, immerses himself in these ancient tribes. So he came to Botswana, to the northwest. It's called the Tsodilo Hills area, where we still have the ancient tribes. And he was, I don't know what the English word to describe it, but you could see he was in awe. Because he was there in the evening, he went hunting with them. He actually cost them a meal because he made noise when they were hunting for the kudu. And he ran away because he
got excited.
Oh, guys, I just cost you dinner. Guess what they ended up catching? They ended up catching a guinea fowl.
Okay.
And the guinea fowl, it was the father and the little son who he was showing him how to set up the trap. And he only caught the guinea fowl once. In the evening, they sat around the fire, making cooking the dinner. The whole family was sitting around. And I was like, oh, man. And then after that, after the meal, guess what they do? He was even forced to take off his shoes. Like, I'm not used to take off his shoes.
And dance around
They dance around the father. There was a grandfather, son and grandson, and I was like, and I was saying, what happened to our fun? I mean, that's fun. And that's daily, yeah? And they do that, they fun, they tell stories, and they what. And he couldn't believe it. And like you said, this is something which I'm now leading to. Why are we, as Africans, you talked to the Prime Minister of Namibia, as you said, about, and now Botswana, Namibia, there's free, use just IDs.
Just joined those.
They just joined, yes. I know Juma just went there. We'll talk about Juma in a second. But why is there reluctance to capture that from an African point of view? I mean, we talk about the Hazebe tribe. The American universities are all over. I don't know if you're aware. Researching and lifestyles and to address their own issues.
The sieve that we were taught to use for academic purposes, it is too porous. It only picks up what the white man wants it to pick. and the rest of the information that is available falls into the cracks. We don't have academic institutions that have an interest in that. Two, we don't have corporates that are interested in investing into that. We don't have universities that actually have adopted that as part of curricula that could be studied. And you have history classes, but they are teaching Mussolini, they're teaching you the German wars,
the South,
and etc. So at the end of the day, you are in your country, you are an African, but the whole structure of you appreciating, learning, harvesting your indigenous knowledge systems and inculcating them into the lifestyle of the day and the science of the day, it's altogether missing. Now imagine when you don't respect the Khoi and the sun, the number of trees that they know in that language, the medicinal values of those trees, the water holes, predicting of seasons, movement of animals. Those are the best game rangers you can find for your tourism. Instead of walking people with guns and etc., here is a tribe that needs no gun, no bullet, no nothing. And they actually will tell you lions stay there, leopards are there, crocodiles are over there. The big heads have migrated north, south. 6 of them are sick. We can see from the cow dung. One of them is broken leg. We can see it's dragging on the floor. And for me to look around and say I'm educated, and yet this old man has 10 times more than I know, I take off my shoes. I take off my shoes in ignorance.
Yeah.
Because then you've just met real education that is practical, implementable. So maybe one reason why we don't seem to capture it would be that we don't have the tools to do it. Next, we've been told it's barbaric, it's not important. And thirdly, even for us to be called qualified and educated, it does not include that.
Yeah.
You cannot say you're educated and you know about the Khoi and the sun. But when they do it, oh hell, they get PhDs and 10 times around us. So I don't know how long it will take us to wake ourselves up from our own sleep and begin to put value where real value is.
Great. Now, I've heard you comment about I like it when you say young, because I can relate to young, and I also felt like maybe I'm young as well. Because he's my age. Yeah. But how do you see Duma? And within the context of what Botswana is going through troubled times. You just hit it in the middle of the dropping and serious decline in diamond sales, the economy tanking now for the 3rd year. How have you assessed Duma as the president during tough times?
It's not even. I'll end up with Boko at the end. Let me start off with the plight of electing leaders. I've worked in the corporate space where we were selecting and appointing CEOs and directors in various organizations. It takes you time, 3 months, 6 months sometimes, doing CVs, checking profiles and references until you come up with shortlisting and then you appoint. You never go to the people in the organization to say, can you choose for us who will be the best CEO? You don't go to employees to look for a CEO. It is the board of directors and shareholders who appoint who they want to protect their interests. Why am I giving such a boring illustration? Because at the end of the day, it is us, the board of directors and the trustees, who know what we want. We have our goals. We have our target markets. We know our weaknesses of the previous CEO. We are writing a new trajectory on where we want our business to go. Then we go shopping for a person who fits into what we want. If we say our margin, bottom lines are bad, we want more profits, we want to do expansion, we want to do new re-engineering, we want to open new mines, then you look for a person who has got the skills, a set of skills to achieve the things that you want. African politics, our disaster of all times. We go to the common people. I know I'll be very unpopular for this. I'll be very unpopular for this, but I'll say it. We go to the common people in the bush who can't read, who can't write. and we ask them to choose a president for us who don't even know what kind of qualities do we need to achieve and solve the problems that we have. At the end of the day, we end up having loud politicians, poor implementers, because we think that slogans are equivalent to development. I could be a silent engineer, but I'm able to build a road.
Yeah.
You can be a loud politician who can't even fix a door. How often in Africa do we go to find a teacher and make him the Minister of Infrastructure Development? You go and find a nurse, and you go and make them the Minister of Tourism. And you crisscross these skills. What you need is a set of skills for a specific task. And I think that if Africa could begin to move to a meritocratic, which is appoint by merit and qualification of task, would move much faster. So what do you do as Botswana? You say, what are our problems? We need the diversification. We need to develop businesses. We need to work on our legal systems. We need to re-improve our regional relationships. And for me, this goes into people like yourselves, where you must begin to do intelligent political education for your community in preparation for elections. Because it is that quality of conversation that informs the people, that for us to transform and move the country to where we want it to be, what kind of a person do we have? We are fortunate in Botswana here. Got a young man, and that makes him teachable and adaptable. Beautiful. You have a lawyer, so in terms of the discussions with De Beers and etc., readjustments of legalities around businesses, it's a space in which he's at home. It's his forte. And many other elements that could come around in this international footprint right now. He's got enough peers who are good encouragement to him. The likes of the Sahel, 3 musketeers there. That is, Traore, and these 2 friends. They have a good friend that is coming up right now in Madagascar. That young man is also popping up.
He's the one who's shaking up the French.
He just kicked out the French the other day.
Yeah.
And for me, and I wish Boko can hear this, President Boko can hear this. Don't be afraid, President. Make them your friends. Create for yourselves as young leaders a forum where you can begin to rub on each other and learn from each other and grow together, because your failure is failure for all the young people that will ever have the old people will never trust young people ever again. So we have an opportunity, and Boko for me brings in fresh, not that is necessarily older, but a fresh,
I got you.
A fresh sense of patriotism, and he's not flying alone. And there's a major amount of developments that are happening, new dreams that are being spoken, visions that are being, diversification. I hear electricity is coming up in the deserts there.
Yeah.
I hear cities are going to be built in the desert there. And people say, hey, he's just dreaming. But we all are proceeds of dreams. It's mom and dad who dreamt of building homes. Are we not here today? We are here in the Grand Palm Hotel here. Was this not someone's dream? We're here in Dubai. We don't know someone's dreams. We're in Singapore. So at the end of the day, when people have no dreams, then why do you say there's no development? Because there's no one that can dream. And the fact that he has seen it, let us give him the hands to implement. And very true story. And this I will say it, and I want to underline it. Our Honorable President Mnangagwa last week met up with Duma in Zimbabwe, and they agreed that we no longer need, both of them, the speeches are there on media, we no longer need to have
passports across.
Passports, we can use our own IDs. Now, the 2 presidents spoke and agreed. I flew in yesterday at the airport, and I said, I come here to qualify if what was said by the president is happening. But the lady was frank enough and says, we are not yet ready.
Yeah.
So there is a problem. That the vision of a leader
and the execution
of the vision is stuck in the bureaucratic system of colonized administration, where actually our own uncles and aunts who sit as directors and deputy directors and DGs in the departments are still crying. They want that stamp. ke stampa ke
Re se rekile,
o tlosa jwang stamp o mpotsa ke stampa ya eng no lekgowa le if someone is coming in your country they must stamp. So we have, and even Burkina Faso has got that problem where the bureaucratic middle class and all
holding the system when the president wants
and for crying out loud, the beneficiaries of the French
for a long time.
abuse. They build up their empires out of the corrupt deals with the French. Now here a young man comes and he wants to kick the whole thing upside down. Hell no. Hell will break loose. You'll be assassinated by your own brothers and cousins. And I think Botswana could be safer. But one of our biggest problems actually could be the old guards who deem themselves the custodians
of the system.
And you ask them, whose system? It is the colonial system. They've won their awards, won their
the badges over time.
over looking after the white man's interests. And if you come around and you want to push that, they feel like the heavens are falling. Like you've just insulted them to tell us that we no longer need what? And when all they know is how to print and check if a passport is fake or it is true, and they don't know, we no longer need it. But of course, they must look at the typewriter in the light of the computer. A man who still wants to sell typewriters now, I think he belongs to the historical museum. It's no longer, it is expired. So
it's interesting because when President Masisi did the deal with Namibia using IDs, apparently, I didn't get the speech. He also pronounced that Zimbabwe is next, and there was a bit of an outcry.
Zimbabweans will come here.
Joshua, but they will be coming here left, right, and center. And I'm underlying the brevity of Duma. I mean, he probably knows that. But you got to look at the long term and see the bend. Yeah.
For Botswana, the advantage, you have 2.5 million people, 25 million people. In terms of scales of population, Zimbabwe is a brother. In terms of skills transfer, Botswana can actually harvest the cream of what Zimbabwe has. But even better than that, the relationship of Botswana and Zimbabwe, in the absence of the Boer Wars, the Tswanas, we have the Tswanas in Zimbabwe. As much as we also have the Xhosas and the Ndebeles and the Zulus, and we also have the Kalangas, huge population of and the Vendas and the Tsongas
and the Sotos.
So you look at it from that angle, really. I don't think Zimbabweans will come here if the doors of opportunities are intelligently opened. You have built up a big reservoir here of engineers because of the mining houses that are here. If we can move some of them into Zimbabwe to beneficiate the mines there with their skills and get the Zimbabwean community employed there, who needs to travel anywhere? Because even when you come here, we don't want to stay here. It's slightly too hot for me. I would want to come here and make money, for sure. But immediately I have my money. I can tell you, and that's not good business, where someone just comes to your house to loot. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be very candid and open. And I know some people might not like what I say, but I'm not here to get stars. But it's not right that I come into your country and all I want is to grab and run. And yes, I'm going to contribute a bit of taxes here and there. But ultimately, when you ask me under room temperature, I am actually waiting to hit a big deal and I hit the road. So how about if we create the environment where you can still make your money and go? But when it comes to really being patriotic, I think a regional strategy would protect us all. Where immediately when borders are open, you'll be shocked. People will flock into Botswana. They will buy from the shelves and go back home. They're not coming here to look for employment, etc., and work and be. Yes, you have those few rogue elements. Yes, you have
always in any society.
But if you look at your market value, if right now Botswana can say they get warehouses that are in South Africa into Botswana, good business strategy, by the way. Listen to me very carefully.
I'm listening.
Get the warehouses that are in South Africa into Francistown areas. Now that the borders are opened,
they're open,
you could actually find that Botswana could begin to make much more money through this, because borders of South Africa are not friendly.
Yeah.
So since this one is becoming friendly, you'd rather make yourself.
And then you have a corridor there in terms of
There you go, Kasane
Bulawayo.
is here.
Yeah.
Bulawayo is over there.
Yeah.
And actually, so
And
it's a
Livingston
big,
is not too far.
it's a window
Yeah.
of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think where good relationships are counting, we're able to harvest a good
Now
return.
celebrate that. Now this touches on the African. I mean, Mnangagwa, Duma, and the doc. I mean, some of us question. I mean, the Berlin Conference, 1885, that did the borders, and I want us to talk about the philosophy of the African. As I told you earlier, I went to Ghana the other day, and I went to Kwame Nkrumah's memorial, and I got my injection. If you say yes, that's moving forward,
Pointing the right
in the
direction.
right direction. And I have to say, because when I was there, I did go to Jamestown. I don't know if Jamestown. I always go to the poorer areas of the city, and I always reflect what Kwame Nkrumah would have thought. And now, what is your take in terms of Kwame Nkrumah's philosophies and his compatriots around how the Africa should come together, and why we have been so overwhelmed by the Western education, the Western borders? I mean, we talk about Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. I mean, the bureaucracy at the borders when our people are poor. I mean, it's criminal.
And the white man,
and
the white man is gone.
Yeah,
It's brother to brother now.
Yeah.
But they put a system there that we have to protect a legacy. I would want to throw you into China. China took 30 years with its doors closed to the international world. They bought machineries from Germany, yellow fleets from London, bought cars from Europe, and moved them into China, into their universities, into their industries. They told their engineers, break these things apart, break them apart, reverse re-engineering.
Yeah.
Create your own. By the time the Samsungs and the Apples came, Microsoft, it was too late. They became a manufacturing hub because they had mastered the art of how do you reverse your re-engineering, closing your doors from everybody, but allowing yourself to grow inside. Now look at the dangers of democracy. Democracy with this Roman Dutch law, which your presidents take vow to, binds them within the intellectual property laws. You can't do this. You can't do this. You must honor your contracts. And some of these contracts, for example, will tell you that you cannot produce a car in your country because we are going to be, Hyundai comes here and says, we are going to be assembling cars here. Therefore, you as a government, you cannot have an indigenous person coming up with a new car in this country because we've already built it. You'd be a competitor against us. The government signs those things. They are put on the shelf for the next 50 years. South Africa, the same. South Africa produces military equipment, but they can't produce one car. Because BMW has got them under the neck, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota. So at the end of the day, you are going to consume what we assemble ourselves. And your innovation, we don't care. Now, when you have the governments that are stuck in those kind of relationships, this goes for manufacturing, this goes for mining. You got a contract with De Beers for the next 99 years, stuck. Generations after generations, stuck. You can't, because democracy is you must maintain and be honest to the contract. Now, what happens to a revolution? A revolution comes around and says, to hell. To hell with bureaucracy. To hell with all these protocols and etc. Kwame Nkrumah was slightly more radical than Julius Nyerere. This is where they clashed. When Nkrumah said, let's do the Africa unity now. Mwalimu, being a teacher, says, no, let's do it slowly.
The borders should stay
a bit slow at a time. Let's break ourselves into regions and we move. We're still moving slowly. But a revolution cannot be negotiated. And for 65 years now, we are still moving slowly. But as we begin to see the Sahel state coming together, 3 states in one, if we were smart enough, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Zambia. We can come together. Also. Malawi and Mozambique is don't throw away. Leave South Africa alone. I'm serious. I'm serious. South Africa has got lots of wounds. They need to heal. Number 1. 2, even while they are healing, they have not fought yet. South Africa has not seen war. They've seen violence, but not war. War like we saw in Zimbabwe, where a country comes to a standstill. Schools are burnt to ashes. Hospitals not function. Roads are not working. Kids are carrying guns. People, the whole community, rape is rife. Soldiers are shooting, and we are there dragging our uncles into shallow graves, and we are being recruited to go and fight the battles in Mozambique. It's a different kind of thing. I've smelled death in the air. It's nothing I wish for anybody. But it looks like South Africa really want war. Because in the midst of their democracy, they've included too much diplomacy at the expense of the common people. And the common people are starting again to get restless over the meager resources that are available on the ground. So the Africa that I see is an Africa that must begin to look at the Chinese model and say, how do we close our doors to external influences, amalgamate our strength into a common space? Maybe for a start, let's start with one stock exchange in Africa for diamonds. Botswana, Lesotho, Namibia, Zimbabwe, whoever has diamonds, let's have our own, like the Arabs did with OPEC for fuel. All the Arab states came together. All those who do oil, come here, let's sit here. How many barrels? How many barrels? How many barrels? How many barrels? You don't do business with anybody. If they want to buy oil, they all come here and buy it OPEC price. So the whole Middle East oil deal is sealed because the seller has consolidated it into one package. The American then went in, they say, okay, the currency you must use is our currency. But the prices are agreed. Now you look at diamonds and say, why not come up with a diamond? Bugger off those Americans. Bugger off the Dubaians. You are producing the diamonds. Come up with your own body. You can't have the kimberlite being determined somewhere else. Bring it here.
In Europe, yeah.
And I'm looking at that from the agricultural sector. I'm looking at that from all of the minerals that we have in Africa. Ultimately, all these pieces put together, can that not give us one stock exchange in Africa? If one stock exchange is in place, can that not give us one bank? If one bank is in place, can that not give us one currency? Before we can even start talking about borders and people moving, people just think of chaos where people are just coming and carrying katundus. They call them katundus in Zambia. They're just carrying the mashangani bags. Just carrying katundus. We can begin to put the infrastructure together that creates the symbiosis in African economies. And we might be shocked that immediately we begin to do that, monies and resources will begin to be distributed equally to the places as according to the resources. Zimbabwe, as of last week, first one in the whole of Africa to export lithium processed liquid.
Processed? They've already started?
Last week.
Wow.
The first shipment went out. No more lithium goes out through that door. And I know this is a soft thing, but the next 2 years, they're saying no more even the liquid. We must produce the batteries here. Now, Botswana, you want to start a solar thing here.
Yeah.
And here, lithium is here. Across the road. Yeah. So if I were you, Boko, I would be in China right now or in Germany getting lecturers who can come to University of Botswana and begin to teach my students how to manufacture these panels using the batteries that are nearby. This is the way the value chain comes into place. Where and you young people also listen to me, young people. Stop looking for these stupid careers, man. Look where the government is going. Look where the regional politics is going. Look where the industry is going. And then position yourself there. Right now, I can tell you that the industries of electricity, power, engineering, construction are going to start booming. Because immediately when the economies are beginning to do well,
it's going to get busy. It's going to get busy. Baby.
And here you are getting a career in some little flimsy, little white collar. So get careers that are profitable and that marry your government strategy, and you'll be able to find yourself in a good space. So Africa must start looking for its limbs like a human body, find where your hands are, find where your ears are, find where your eyes are. And this body sooner or later might want to start standing up and coordinating herself. That those who have oil like Angola, why must we be buying our petrol right now from Russia? 4,000, 5,000 kilometers away. Whereas you can just put a pipe between Luanda here, through the Chobe River in Zambezi. Zambia, take yours. Botswana, take yours. Zimbabwe, take yours. Mozambique, take.
Where is SADC?
SADC is a toothless dog, man. I just see a beautiful building there. I don't know.
You know what I mean? We've been discussing these things. I'm like, there's supposed to be a body that's supposed to be facilitated.
If it was possible, I'll apply for a job there. Just give the vehicle is there, but it's always running up and down the street carrying no passengers. If you hear what I'm saying, burning lots of fuel. We just see SADC. We don't even have a SADC bank. That's how sad it is.
I'm trying to look for deliverables. That, like you said, something tangible that...
We see the building. We see the building in the brochures. But we've not seen SADC doing developmental stuff, whether it is community-based, whether it is preservation-based, or it is industrially based, or it is economically boosting. It's just a place of taking pictures.
Wow.
And I wonder if maybe I'm wrong, those of you in SADC, with all
we're trying to get them to the podcast to explain
with
that.
all protocols observed, and they must not come and talk in English. When they come here, just say, take us to a project that we have done. Don't tell us SADC.
Yeah.
No.
Some vision, what.
Take us to your bank. Take us to your bank. If I was SADC right now, I would be producing weapons. Under SADC, with South Africa as the champion there, said, allow us to start producing weapons. South Africa is spending billions. Zimbabwe is spending billions. Botswana is spending billions. On what? On weapons. Why not take all this money?
Stuff comes from overseas.
Why not take all this money, put it into Denel in South Africa, and produce your own weapons and protect yourselves against each other? And against it sounds funnier. Because ultimately you may discover that there's no need to fight each other.
Exactly.
Let's use this
because you're all eating.
Yes.
You're all eating.
The gun you have, I also have it. So why shoot each other, you know? So maybe, even if it would mean agricultural.
Agriculture, I mean, water, sharing water. And
if it could mean stock exchange, but I don't even know what that thing is all about. They changed the spelling from SADC to SADC. I can't account.
So in conclusion, talking about the African, I call it maybe the little revolution has started, looking at Traore, looking at the other two nations there, Niger and so forth. I don't know Ruto in Kenya, what he's playing. I like what the Namibian lady is also doing. There's the renaissance seems to have, it's moving. I mean, I don't know whether it will be achieved in our generation. That's what I'm because like you said, the forces that are working against it, I think they'll come now with the I don't know.
And for the final kick, and they know if they lose this time.
Yeah. Like France in West Africa, it's fighting back, isn't it?
To give you a more global picture, you start a war in Ukraine, which messes up the food. Ukraine was a breadbasket of Europe. You start a war there. America is a criminal. Food is not coming. Then they must buy wheat from America. So it's business for America. The war then you go for the Nord Stream. You bomb the fuel supply from Russia. Okay, we hear you. Then you come to Iraq. You start a war. You go to Venezuela. You make another blockage. You come to Iran. You make another blockage. Ultimately, France in particular. Then the coming up of Traore, the uranium is cut. Food is cut. Oil is cut. And oil again is cut. Strait of Hormuz is closed. It's closed. Now you begin to see France now acting in a paranoia way because they have, for the longest of time, lived on a leeching parasite economy. And when the Sahel state and other French-speaking states are beginning to break away from France, no longer putting their deposits in the French banks and then getting it back. Imagine you put your money in France bank. When you get it back, it's a loan. See how France has been making money? Yeah. Your own money. You take your budget as a country to say, keep our money for us. When you want your money to come and pay your workers, it's a loan to you. It's no longer your money. It has become our money. France has been running that. And when the umbilical cords are starting to be chopped off, Macron is almost losing his head. He wants to resign. He wants to run away. Now he says he's done enough. But it's true. This model is not sustainable. But if I was France, I would have been looking at how do you repair what you have destroyed, rather than in Mali. He was there 3 days ago, bombing Mali with his mercenaries, trying to kill the young man who is in power now. And I think it's in Madagascar, same thing again. And Burkina Faso, almost 15 assassination attempts. And I think it's becoming desperate. But he's not going to win. because this time around we're not going to be giving it on a plate. With Africa is coming up together, and I think people like yourselves and many other young people, we need to start talking local politics, and then we raise our voices higher to regional politics. Ultimately, we need to start championing what I might call African politics, where in our own way, I want to challenge your station. Come up with your barometer of the leaders that you want for Africa and package them and start populating that calendar with the leaders and the quality that you want. Where there is an empty spot, put the qualifications that are needed. We need a Minister of Finance for Africa. Who is the best financial person in Africa? Not the richest person. Who can actually, and find him, put him there. Who could be the best for sports? Who could be the best for culture and tourism? Who could be the best? And maybe this dream you're talking about, no one has seen it yet. I'm also looking for that fire. But maybe the day we all see that fire, we see that timetable, we see that catalog, we may actually start having a dream which we can sell, which many other people can sell. And the revolution does not announce. And once the people are ready, they will move themselves.
But you'll agree that now, and I like what you said, it's in pockets. We have a Traore, you have this one. The revolution has not really... And I wanted to go to the soft issues now of, let's call it the revolution. From my understanding, as an example, visiting Macron again, the French, when you go to Cote d'Ivoire and Benin, they speak French. Apparently, some of them have even lost their own indigenous languages. Apparently, from the reading and commentary, Southern Africa, a bit better. We can still speak our indigenous languages, but we still, like you said, we're speaking English now. Our kids can't speak our own indigenous languages anymore. In Botswana is very notorious. South Africa is very notorious. And I'm just trying to visit sometimes it starts with the education and the younger people and how we are infusing the Africanness, for lack of a better word, because that will make it a lot more sustainable in the future. So what do you think what we are doing? Because the president can do things, but if the masses and the education is feeding the old system, the curricula that is very Western, education. Our curricula in Botswana and what is still, we're joking about teaching Tsao of what. A lot of people don't know the history of Botswana or Southern Africa, but they can recite the Boston Tea Party of 1773. So how do you see those foundations as well? Like I said, on the softer side of feeding this journey.
I met up with Matlonolo,
yes.
The guy from professor from South Africa, who wrote a mathematics book in Sesotho. The first book, mathematics book in Sesotho. I have the book.
It's called Matlonolo.
Tell me what's his name, and Professor, he passed away.
Okay.
But I have his book somewhere there. I walk into Kenya and Tanzania and I find science books that are written in Kiswahili. And the pass rates, they are crazy in technical subjects. Because if a nation can read and count, if they can read, then what more do you want? They already have the software of counting. What's now lacking are professional academicians who can now translate that. Is it not painful for you to discover that the most written book in Setswana is the Bible?
Yeah.
Almost every house
painful
has a Setswana Bible. Had those been engineering, mathematics, physics books in that abundance.
And we're still translating into many other indigenous, and it's big celebrations and the potluck and everything when it's been translated into some local, And
maybe that's the weakness of the mind. That why is it so important for the system to make sure that we have as many Bibles, but as little engineering as possible? And then we wonder, why are we not developing, when in fact we invest ourselves and our effort into the very things that make us not to be able to develop ourselves. So we are touching a very important element which speaks to curriculum development. We don't have to apologize. We are in power now as black people. So who do we still blame for Bantu education in our universities and in our primary, high schools and etc.? Who do you blame? To still teach your children William Shakespeare in 2026. So maybe it goes to say again, the custodians of the system who have been taught that for you to be proliferated as educated, you need to have attained these standards, these unit standards. You need to have memorized these wars. You need to have memorized these poems. You need to know the dates of Hitler's birth and his death. Then you are called educated. Well, maybe that curriculum is expired also. We needed to go back and find out where we lose our children. This speaks to entertainment. What quality of entertainment and education is on our TVs and on our radios. Even now, with our softwares and our cell phones and etc., we have no excuse. We can translate. We can infiltrate these systems with our language, with our games, and create for ourselves platforms which can become very educational for our children. So we miss that gap of when you get educated to adapt your education to where you're coming from, so that you become a bridge of interpreting. I mean, I've done theology. If you want to enjoy me at my best, ask me to say, when you look at the Bible, where do you see the African in the Bible? What is the bridge between African culture and the Bible culture? Then I'll show you a man who was told to marry another man's wife who had passed away, and God says, please go and sleep with your late brother's wife. Continue the generation. I see polygamists sitting over there. I see people collecting herbs over there. I see Jesus picking dust and putting in people's eyes and opening up. I see people sitting in the Egyptian pyramids and learning, and this is all our history. This is our history. And if you find people that know how to pay lobola, Abraham says, take my stuff, go and pay lobola for my daughter-in-law there.
Abraham.
Yeah. Then you can see, this culture are the owners of the text. But that takes knowledge of understanding both the culture and the biblical text. Then you're able to build the bridge of understanding between the two. And I wish mathematicians could do the same. I wish doctors could do the same. Our mothers never used to get their stomachs cut. No matter how difficult. The death rate of midwifery in child delivery was very low.
Really?
Oh, no, in the ancient times. It's a fact. In modern times now, the anesthetic what?
The anesthetics, the use of anesthetics, yeah.
The doctor is here. The gynecologist is here. And mothers are still dying and stomachs are being cut. Children are dying. And you wonder, which part of civilization is this? Is pregnancy becoming a sickness now? Cows and goats deliver every day in the bush. What are they eating? How are they living so that they can deliver nicely? Where are our doctors? Who, instead of rushing into cesarean section of the West, can go to the indigenous knowledge and medicines of the past and be able to bring up a good diet? No, when you are pregnant, you must eat more okra. You must eat more so that you are able to oil your things and make it more softer. These diets are not acceptable. Stay in a warm room. Please put a big cloth around the womb. Keep your womb warm so that your child does not shrink and cold and breach and all. That knowledge is sitting with some old grandmother somewhere. And where are the doctors that can, after you get your small little PhD, PCF, whatever you call it, gynecology specialist, and say, okay, I've received a piece of paper, but there's something I don't know about my people. And you can walk down from your echelons of self-importance and go back into primitive knowledge and scoop that knowledge. Now come to your desk. This is what academia says. This is what tradition says. And in yourself, you can be able to come up with a hybrid form of medicine where when the patient comes to you, you can say, do you want to deliver the natural way or do you want to deliver the academic way? And people can begin to make choices. Like China. When you get there, do you want indigenous medicines or do you want...
Going to a standard hospital?
Yes. Do you want plastic or do you want organic? I went there. I was there. There are pharmacists are in two sections. Organic, indigenous, and plastic. You choose what you want. Aspirin here, this is the root, which is the same element with this one here. For flu, this is the herb package here. This is the Vicks, those, and they're doing it so seamlessly within. So for you to be a pharmacist in China, you're not just a pharmacist. You need to know both worlds. And I think Africa, we are 10 times bigger than China all these bushes that are around us. Our pharmacologists must come up with better solutions of how do we bridge that knowledge gap. And I'm only mentioning pharmacists, agriculture, mineralogy. We're mining men way before these rascals came here. But where is that knowledge? Architecture is what I'm saying, the Bushmen, all these paintings and etc. Where are the scholars who can build bridges of knowledge between these colonial technologies and our indigenous technologies? You walk up to the river in the evenings, in the summers of African continent, and you look at the birds making their nests, and the old people can tell you, we're going to have a drought this year. And they go back and they look, we're going to have lots of rain this year. Why? Because there are birds that go to the river there, when their nests are too low, closer to the water, we're going to have a drought that year. And the rain is not yet fallen. When the nests are way up in the sky, they're telling you we're going to have lots of floods. How do those birds know whether there's going to be flood or there will be a drought? And by observing these birds, you know how to do your agriculture. Now that knowledge, who amongst us, who are geologists and who are not geologists, we not call them this, who do weather patterns?
Yeah, meteorologists.
Meteorologists. Where are you? Busy telling us in guest thumb sucking. According to the satellite, we're going to have some good rains next year. You're lying, man. Go to the river.
But I don't think you are saying we should. Are you necessarily saying we should slow down with science or come up with a balance of the two? That we've left our indigenous knowledge way down, and then promoted and supported this. We just need to do a balance. Are you not saying we should abandon?
Well, I'm actually enjoying myself because I'm looking at how old is this knowledge that we're leaving behind. How many thousands of years has it taken us to accumulate this knowledge with our ancestors? Yeah, and it is organic, and it is indigenous, and it is applicable to the ground that we are in. These are the knowledge, in as much as it looks fast and furious and easy to implement, it is still fairly new.
Yeah.
We are still now discovering the side effects of Ambi.
Yeah.
When our sisters' cheeks started looking like maps of Africa. Only another 5-10 years from now will we know the effects of COVID and the vaccination of putting heavy metals into people's bloodstreams. Only few years from now will we discover the side effects of contraception and these tablets, and they've started coming out. Women are now having their limbs cut off, blisters and etc. And they were asked, there's no sickness anyway. But the bodies, because of the toxins and etc., they've been pumping into their bodies for 5-10 years. Obesity, you find mothers that have hanging hands, hanging bellies and etc. But they're trying to eat well. But that thing that was shot into them, it's messing up their hormones. And their bodies are now beginning to react only now. If we were to do research right now, I could almost tell you a good percentages of female health is caused by those type of contraceptions. What happened to our old ladies? When you start bleeding, put your red bead here, 2, 3. On the 7th one, it's thinning up. Orange, 1, 2, 3, 7. It has stopped. Put the white ones, 1, 2, 3, 7. It has now put the green ones, 1, 2, 3. Your first 28 days is right there. There's your entire hospital. There's your entire family planning. And if we can begin to discuss polygamy from here, it makes sense. Because a woman only needs a man on the white and on the green. And she decides if she wants to get pregnant or she does not want to get pregnant. I'm not saying this is all thorough, but this is what all people used to do. Now, who amongst us can go back and study this science? And we can reintroduce it to our children without pastors saying, our children are now becoming demonic.
Was Satan.
That's why I always say, if that's even to tradition, shut up. I keep quiet.
Yeah, no, my brother. Let's talk about and you correct me. You are a huge critic of Christianity, which comes a bit odd because you were ordained and you read theology. You were immersed. You just told me earlier, no, lemo 7th day, musabata. So, and I'm saying this because, the Pope was just in North Africa recently. And I was just picking up quite interesting stats. But actually the level, the rate at which Catholicism is increasing in Africa is still on the high. People are still going, which is bizarre because in Europe, the churches are getting emptier. But in Africa, it's the other way around. Do you want to just take us through your view on that?
The danger of Christianity, it is that it has assumed the role of identity. And because our grandmothers and grandfathers were in it, we're people of continuity, naturally, as Africans. So most likely, if your grandfather or grandmother was involved in something, you would find it very difficult to walk away. So their clothes are very important. Their lifestyle and whatever other emblems that they leave become very important. So as population is growing, and the grand matriarch here is Catholic or is whatever, it is very easy to have the African migrate towards what they might call their family faith.
Yeah.
And so the Pope is very strategic in terms of rekindling and reigniting the African interest, because that's where the strongholds are going to be, Africa and Brazil and Latin America. And the Christian conversation becomes a bit more complex because the obsession with eschatological, futuristic second coming of Jesus seems to overshadow development and dreams and visions. When you ask them what's happening, that Jesus is coming. When? Soon. How soon? Soon and very soon. Okay, when someone has that mindset, the question is, can they do long-term planning? Can they invest when they actually know that Jesus is coming soon? We've had few waves where in the 1990s and in 1844, where pronouncements were made, even 2000, where the hype came back again, that Jesus is coming. People sold their farms. People removed their children from school. People stopped doing everything else because they were waiting for the second coming of Jesus. And unfortunately, he did not come. Even a few months ago, there was this rapture thing that was burning through the media. So the whole theology, when it makes you so much heavenly minded and of no earthly good, I think theology can become a danger to development, because then it puts everything into the future and subtracts you in the present, where you begin to trust God for everything. But the same Bible says, occupy till I come. I made you so that you can be heads and not tails. And what is in the head? So that you can see, you can hear, you can taste, you can smell. That's where the senses are. And that's where God has put us. So why are Christians busy sitting at the back, in the outlet of whatever is happening in the front? So I don't think you even read this Bible correctly. Because if in the Garden of Eden, I've given you this, work on it. Develop it. Was that commandment only given to white people? And black people must always be sitting with the ball in hand, walking around and begging, as it were. And everyone acts. We'll even say God has placed all of us on the face of the earth so that all of us, we can look for him, though he's not far away from any one of us. Therefore, this God that works with tourism, you need a passport to go and see God there. He comes over here to talk to. So my understanding started moving a little bit into social gospel, and then going through the text, finding African culture in it.
What does social gospel mean?
Responding positively to social issues and social ills.
Okay.
Yes, be it poverty, be it war, be it liberation theology, all the structures of hermeneutical explanation, particularly to social implementation. And then African culture in the Bible then pushed me over the margins. By the time I did mysticism, the Buddhism, Hare Krishnas, and etc., and find that stories of immaculate conceptions started happening 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, before even the arrival of Christianity. These stories have been there. And so what is so particular and peculiar, and then Genesis threw me into the dustbin. Genesis, when Cain killed his brother, and God says, you've been condemned. Cain says, please, if you leave me to go, they will kill me. That word is the one that confused me. They will kill me. And I said, who are the they? Because what we know is Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. And Cain says in Genesis 4, they will kill me. And he went out of the garden in chapter 4, and he got married. Outside of the garden. To who? And his uncle Enos gets married to 2 wives outside of the garden. Then you begin to look at this thing and say, is it possible that the creation story of Genesis is actually God creating for himself a peculiar nation, but surrounding them are actually other nations that are in existence?
Who wrote Genesis?
Oh, it says Moses who wrote it, but Moses was not yet born. Moses is only born sometime in Exodus there, a few couple of hundreds of years later. And actually, Moses did not write it. It was a recitation from Midian. Midian, who is the son of Keturah. Keturah, who is the wife of Abraham after the death of Sarai. So when Moses killed his brother and he went to Midian, then he sat down with Midian and Midian then. Because Moses was already a pagan coming from Egypt. He did not know anything. So the first time he heard, in the beginning, this was the traditional oral tradition from Abraham. Then Jethro teaches Abraham. And Jethro is the father of Zipporah, who is the wife. So you begin to connect all these pieces together. So the Bible was actually written right here in Africa, right here, recited from amongst ourselves. But again, to know that Egypt becomes older than the Jews. Our civilization was way ahead. By the time the Jews came, they were in establishment. Because the Great Zimbabwe was already standing. Mapunguka was standing. Dombo Shava, here in Masunga here, was standing before the Jews stood up in Jerusalem. Mapunguke, Nzalo Yelanga. And we come around and we allow young people who have no knowledge of history to tell us.
Was it through your immersion into Christianity and theology and the broader reading of understanding African culture and all that? Was it part of the turmoil in your head that led you to rethink?
It is still happening. It is still happening. Sometimes I see it through the biblical text. Sometimes I see it outside of the biblical text. But the scriptures themselves have remained somewhere in the center of my conversation. I'm still trying to find the thread that connects this. But there seems to be a disjoint. It's either you must be this or that. But the white man is this and that. And I'm wondering why it is so passionate for the African to say you can either do Christianity, don't do culture. But the same one who's saying don't do culture, like a Mahadi.
What a Mahadi?
Like a Mahadi, young one. But why you want Mahadi?
You don't believe in this,
But we go to a funeral if you want to see a real African. Then all of a sudden, the whole Christianity thing is through the window. But you don't need to have that schizophrenic two minds. I am there and there. These things are all connected. Here is Mary and Martha going to the grave on a Sunday to go and embalm and put oil on the body of a dead person. This is culture. On Jesus yourself, the same Jesus you talk about. Here are women who are going to do what is culturally acceptable in their own culture, in the New Testament. And you come around and say, hey, the dead man knows nothing. But it is being practiced right here. If a man dies and his wife has no husband, and God says, you as a remaining brother, marry your brother's wife, so that his children cannot be brought up by a stranger, and you leave the woman to become a prostitute on the streets. What is she going to do? 4 children later, and the brother dies. We're now Mokere King. So who is going to look after those children? From somewhere else, different surname, must come and look after your own children. Then you talk about abuse, because that man is going to sleep with your children now. And history in the Bible has lived here longer. These dynamics have been discussed, have been argued, and solutions have been found, even recorded in the biblical text. Now bring a Christian and ask them to implement that. They become prayer warriors.
Yeah. But I want you to simplify it because I don't know if I can call them teachings or around the Christianity, and it's especially young people. The older generation, as you said, they've been orientated and they're not moving.
Yeah.
Because as you said, it's become a culture. And the younger people who are questioning are in a state of almost chaos. They don't know what to believe. They listen to you.
The next thing, a pastor comes to the house with the mother, and they're like, what? I mean, you said Jesus walked on water. What I'm saying is it's genuine confusion because they said, I've done signs. There's nobody who can walk on water. And I want you to, for that confused young man in Africa, and I said this, and we discussed it earlier, how spirituality is so important to a people and a nation. The West have Jerusalem, that was their moral compass. The Chinese and so on, they had Buddha. Everybody had their own. And with Africa, we had our own. And with colonization, that was disrupted and changed and almost severed. So I just want you to talk to, because, we listened to you and we're like, how do you help the confused? And I'm saying this genuinely because that's part of social chaos or corrosion at the moment, because people don't know where the African true north is. I don't know if I'm clear.
For a student, I don't want to throw big stones and then confuse the young people more.
That's
I would want to start off maybe by putting a bridge, which I might want to call an intelligent, intellectual bridge between Christianity and culture. And I want to recommend the book of Genesis chapter 1. The difference between Maponga J's teaching and the gospel according to Maponga J and the gospel according to the pastors in your churches, it's vast.
The difference is vast.
Because the pastors in the church are telling you in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth was formless and void, and the Spirit of the Lord hovered above in many waters, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So let there be light. And it's done. You must know that God created the heavens and the earth. Do you believe that now? Yes, I baptize you. In my gospel, it's different. I start with Genesis 1 verse 0. There is someone who stands in the dark and has a plan for what he's going to do. Deal also with yourself, standing in dark moments, and plan what you're going to do. You become the author of the book of Genesis yourself. The creation of the world becomes the creation of your world. How do you deal with your darkness? How do you deal with your waters? What are your waters? What is underneath your waters? How do you separate your waters so that your land can come up? How do you now secure this piece of land so that you can plant on it? What kind of trees and plants, strategies can you put in place so that you can have an environment that is habitable? What kind of animals? What sort of wife are you going to marry on the sixth day? And what is your resting pattern? So then you look at the whole Genesis as a model of how do I feel. I've just finished writing a book, actually, which I think will be very intelligent. It's coming up shortly, 13 Principles of Unlimited Possibilities, where I've soaked my head into building that bridge as a model of initial thinking. So that once you get Genesis 1 verse 1 correctly, that I am the one who must speak things that are not yet to be. And the whole book of Genesis has to do with me constructing, building my life into the Eden that I want it to be. Then from there, I cannot hold you. What kind of commandments can you put into this garden? That's Exodus. What kind of wars are you going to be fighting in this garden? That's your Kings. What kind of songs are you going to be singing in this garden? That's Psalms. What kind of wisdom do you need in the garden? That's Proverbs. What kind of reincarnation? That's
so you don't have to abandon everything.
I'm
That's
saying,
the bridge that
I'm
you're
saying for the
talking
younger students.
Yeah.
Because
because it's and I see there's a lot of even in South Africa, I don't know, Bishop and Evan, they're all now critiquing Christianity. There's a whole army of disciples of Maponga. So you can't strawberry a situation and not help to bridge.
And I hope
it's tearing on almost being irresponsible.
I'm trying, and I think by the end of by July, my birthday month, I should have that book available. I would love to come back and launch it here.
Please, yes.
And we can have that maybe
discussion around
colloquium
detail.
around. I learned a new.
You learned some English today.
I knew colloquial,
not
but today I go colloquium now.
No, that's good, because I wanted to end there because I'm quite serious about the I'm trying to find the right English where there is this. Also, it's also done by, and as we go into geopolitics, it's done by for instance, the right wing in the States. The way it's anchored on God and Christianity, and the young man or young woman here is like, why am I associated? Why is he saying this? Is that the same God as mine? The way he's behaving. Yeah,
and the behavior of the West has actually proved that the Bible is not right. Because how can you be the right wing that believes in God, yet you are the most fighting, most killing, most destructive? So what kind of God is that who tells you to destroy everybody else? And you say you're the right wing. You're fundamentalists, but in your fundamentalism, you are the worst of all military generals who are butchering the whole world over. Then how good is your religion if it can change you?
Let's end on the geopolitics. Now that you're talking about the current chaos around the world and the petrol prices. I was on a call yesterday with some people in Kenya saying the prices there, actually they got shortage. We were saying we went to a filling station, there's a shortage. So we have this very chaotic situation around the globe through with the Iran war, the Lebanon war, and how do you want us as Africans to interpret that, and how do we prepare, because it might not be the last?
The Abrahamic faith will include Judaism and Hebrew faith, will include Islam, will include Christianity. They all have their genesis in Abraham. One then has Torah, one has the Bible, one has the Quran. One has Jesus, one has Muhammad, one has Yahweh on the other side. These three religions, ladies and gentlemen, they all have an obsession with takeover and ultimately being the only religions on the face of the earth. Christians believe that when the whole world falls under Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord and is King. It creates for them a panacea where they want to drive towards. And America wants to be in the forefront of that. We've seen that in Nigeria. Even we want to protect the rights of Christianity in those areas. So it's clear. The agenda items are clear. And Christianity believes that once it takes over the whole world, then the Messiah will appear. And then it will be a new living altogether. While they're planning that, Islam also thinks, if we can bring the whole world under the rule of the Sharia law, Muhammad, and we clean the world of drunkenness, prostitution, and what, and create an Islamic world, then the world will be a peaceful place for everybody. While they're busy dreaming and going to war to create that new world, Boko Haram, ISIS, Saudi Arabia, and etc. That's the agenda of the jihadists. While they're busy dreaming, then Hebrews come, the Israelis. We believe in Yahweh. And we believe that God has given us from the mouth of the Nile, that is in Uganda, to the ends of the Euphrates, that is in Turkey. You follow? This whole region here must fall under Israel. And then, according to the Bible, the Israel will grow. The redeemed of the Lord shall return. All nations shall come and fall at the feet of this God, Yahweh. Then if these three religions, one source, three books, one devil.
You honestly believe that?
I'm giving it to you as it is. So ultimately at the bottom of this, the question is, which God is superior to the other? And having said that, when your gods are fighting, then why are you killing each other as human beings? Why not just close God, Yahweh, and Allah in one room, and they can fight themselves there, and whoever comes out will listen to him? Why are human beings fighting battles that belong to God? The international politics, in as much as we want to look at through the geopolitical health, through the economic world, but when you begin to hear them talking, when you begin to hear the Netanyahu's talking, that these Palestinians are less than animals, they must be killed because even their children are going to become terrorists also. This world was given to us. We don't fall under the jurisdiction of the Bible. We are above the Bible. We are the chosen and the remnant, and no one can tell us anything. Then you begin to understand how they look at you as a black person, how they look at the Palestinians, how they look at the Iranians. And similarly so, when the Allah Akbar, when the Islam man comes, Allah Akbar. Nothing can stand on their way. They also want it their way. And Christianity now through America, they think that they are doing God a favor by killing all those who refuse to obey to this. So there is a religious, spiritual element to global politics. There is also an economic policy, but economics is a servant of spirituality. Because ultimately, when you are economically well, who do you tell, which God do you tell to celebrate your success? So I believe this multi-layered way of controlling the world, of course, the New World Order also comes into play as they're trying to marshal into a cashless society, the branding of people, the chipping of people. It's now a big debate. We're not talking about it, but lots is happening. The Epstein files have brought in other scary files that you can notice there, that even in the MNRs and these injections, that Epstein put his DNA in some of those things. So maybe with more Epstein people...
Don't even go there.
It's appalling stuff.
Yeah.
These nanoscience and nanotechnologies that are coming in. So we are fighting on various levels. We are fighting with physical, we're fighting in diet, we're fighting with medicines that are being injected, we're fighting politically. And while the world is fighting, Africa, please plant food, and be as organic as possible. Don't run ahead and get excited about everything that is coming from the West. Hey, let's be careful a little bit. Let's slow down. And hence I'm saying maybe the Khoisan could be some of our solutions to some of these problems. Let's start going back there and pick up some solutions of how they used to do it in the past. Maybe we could preserve ourselves.
Because I'm thinking as you are articulating this, about the motivations of global religious
politics
sects, yeah. And here I'm thinking of, for instance, you have, there is a young man in Masunga with his Bible going, and the preacher is talking about goodies and he's feeling good and goes home. Similarly in Mutari, in Masehu, very simple African people, and the almost scary picture that you just painted. What do you think they should do? I don't even know. You know what I mean? They're sitting there, they go home, they just had their church service, and the preacher just, religion consoles. Even from research, religion, spirituality, it's a big component of happiness. People who do that are happier than those that are irreligious. So it's a very important component. But how do I think about those very simple people going in their life with their grandmothers, well-used Bible, actually.
And they're happy there. Luke 2 verse 52 will then say Jesus grew in body, in mind, in love, in harmony with God and with men. So we have a 4-dimensional growth, which is consistently mentioned, that even the young people themselves must consider that their growth must not just be on social piety, social easiness. There must be a mental development. There must be physical development. There must be social intelligence and a spiritual growth. And ultimately, the very book that they are holding, it also says, in the last days, knowledge shall increase. The love of many shall wax cold. So in the increment of knowledge, the question is, where are you going to fall in are you going to fall in the trap of ignorance when there's so much knowledge that is coming up? And that knowledge, when it comes up, what does it mean? For the simple, in the day of trouble, they are the first casualties of war. Because in the midst of their ignorance, they will not be defended against their own ignorance. They will be burned on the stakes because of ignorance. And God says in my Psalms, worship God with understanding, in truth and in spirit, as John would later on highlight. Those who worship me must worship me in truth. What is truth? What is not? What is fact? So do we want people to worship out of ignorance, or do we want them to worship out of knowledge? And if we knew what knowledge that I now know, maybe I can make a declaration on your show for the first time. When you hear that he's over there, don't go. Mark that verse. The other one says, for the kingdom of heaven is in you. Mark that verse. Then the other one says, your bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit. Mark that verse. And the other one says, I don't dwell in houses that are built by men. Mark that verse. Then who are you? You are the venue in which that which you have been told is outside is in residence over here. Don't go there, looking for that which he has actually said it is in you. Then Psalm 82 closes it up. Know ye not that you are gods, but because you don't know this simple fact, you're going to die like common men. What more can I tell you?
Now,
what more can I tell you?
Yeah, no, I got you. I said it earlier at the talk that, and this is now personalizing it to you, because I talked about.
You have some water somewhere?
Yeah, and then in where Christianity was pervasive in Europe, you know what happened to Galileo? Just what he said. You know, saying that the earth is not the center.
He was killed by the church.
Yeah, you know, and he was under house arrest and all that. Spinoza, Baruch Spinoza, the Jewish chap who started questioning, you know, he was excommunicated from his community. So what I'm saying, I'm personalizing.
Me too. I was chased.
Yes,
I was chased out from the church.
Well, you can't blame me.
Which is very healthy.
But how has all this settled? I mean, one thing that you and I have to have a date is that I would like to have you there, and I would like to have a Christian bishop with a father on the other side.
At your own risk.
We have yeah, exactly. I'm looking forward to the sparks. Yeah. So because how has it been in terms of especially with a very staunch Christian base in Africa? Have you been chased out of venues, or how has it been?
It's a long story, man. My heart is a graveyard for many people's mistakes. And I would not want to run around life reciting the failures of systems on dealing with me. I have forgiven them. Yes, I've had confrontations and altercations with various, but this was when I thought that I had the right to be there, you know, and I was forced to do things that I didn't want to do, and was marginalized, I was humiliated in some spaces, but I later on grew up to discover that it's not their problem. It's my
building and giving.
It's my journey, and it is my life that I'm living. It's my questions. When I was young, I accepted everything. I became old, I questioned everything. And it is in that questioning that I have started actually to have more meaning to life. I'm slightly more happier now.
Oh, really?
I've lost many enemies, including the devil. He's no longer my enemy, including Christians, including Catholics. Because when you are born, you're just told, you are Satan. It is a mark of the beast. And you wake up in the morning already with a bag full of enemies that you can't account for, because the system has already told you to hate them. And I wake up one morning and I discover Muslims are okay. Buddhists are okay. Hindus are okay. Krishnas are fine. African indigenous are okay. And I think it has given me more acceptance to my new lifestyle of mountains and caves and forests and etc. And just trying to slow down and reload and download fresh files in the midst of silence of nature.
You have no regrets?
I'm much, much happier. I have no regrets. I lost my pension, my career, my 33 plus years of work flushed down the drain. And you walk around now and you are being pointed fingers. Used to be. No, used to be. My ex-bishop, my ex-pastor, some people come around trying to rub some salt. Some write some statuses, we are still waiting for you to come back. Yeah. Some send you your own sermons. And they will have various ways of torturing you, in there. But I've lived a full life. Full life. I'm writing my own Bible. We're on chapter 450 now, 4950.
There must be a mistake. You can't say chapter 400.
Yeah.
Are you saying chapter 400 or page 400?
Chapter.
So it's going to be the size of the Bible.
It's a compendium. It's an encyclopedia. It's somewhere here. The gospel according to Mapongaji. The very gospel, the very things I'm telling you now. Where after I'm dead, I think my mouth is shut. Finally, scholars will be able to pick up my works like they did with all other scholars in the past. And then people will start going through what I'll have gone through. Maybe like Galileo, another 100 years from now, other young people will be saying, this is what happened to him.
Yeah.
But I've accepted my fate. And I'm happy.
Okay. And as we end, just to share, you had another book that you wrote. You want to just share with our audience?
So much more
not one book.
And then, of course, as been mentioned on the credited architecture, that's very much behind this, that if we have proper valuation, we'll get better interest rates. And then, of course, innovative finance. So much to do.
Merci. Je voudrais donner...
Thank you. I will now give the floor to Valerie Rich.
These were the closing remarks for this session. Thank you to all the panelists and a round of applause for them. I invite you now to come forth for a group photograph.
Je sais pas où sont les photographes.
Where are the photographers?
Je vous demande de les applaudir encore.
Another round of applause for our panelists for the different contributions.
Merci.
Thank you.
Ah oui. Merci. C'était donc le dernier panel.
This was the last panel that I had the opportunity to moderate. I'd like to thank all the panel members I've met over the past 4 days for the quality of discussions. Thank you for the different meetings. We want to thank the technical team of the AFDB who ensured that everything happened smoothly. And like it is said, we hope to see you again soon.